All right, so I'm gonna do an epoxy. I'm gonna do an epoxy fill right here. I'm gonna do black on these little blacks going on the branches. There's gonna be white for the flowers. There'll be this reddish tint in the middle. Those circles are just from the original inlay. I didn't need to go as deep as that. I went as deep as I needed. So looks like it's all burnt up and terrible right now, but eventually, hopefully, hitting it with black epoxy, going over just a little, should give me what I need. I'm gonna mix, like I said, I got the black, got the white, got the red. I know it says cream, that's just because it came from Temu. I got this little mixer thing, probably gonna have to find something else. And I'm just using these, you get like, from like KFC or something. I got a few of these, because the plastic won't introduce bubbles as much as like using a porous piece of wood will. I'm gonna have this little syringe. It has very small lumen, so hopefully that'll do its job. The trick from doing syringe work is that when you plunge this into, this cap comes off, and when you plunge it in here, you want to push it 2 or 3 different times to make sure that the plunger, like when you go to draw, this is just from doing this forever since my kid has medicine that I had to learn how to administer, and then became a pharmacy technician. So when you have this little plunger here, the little rubber plunger, you want to push it up a bunch while it's submerged in the fluid, and that'll keep the bubbles from being inside the syringe here. So you'll know, you can't eliminate all the bubbles, but it's traditionally good practice, and you want to measure right up to where, like that, almost. I'm trying to do this one-handed. You want to try to get that round, the flat edge there, to be on the line that you're going for. But if you're doing an exact measure, which I'm not, I'm just gonna fill this up. But yeah, I'm gonna do that. I'm basically gonna submerge this. I'm gonna push it in here and then pull it out and push it in and pull it out like that, and that'll get rid of most of the bubbles, hopefully. And then use that fine needle. And I have these stirring sticks, or toothpicks for stirring sticks, for when I put this in the center of these inlays, then I can kind of starburst the pattern out with the toothpick, hopefully. This is all conjecture. I have no idea how this is actually going to turn out, so we'll find out. All right, so I have these taped up so I can create little channels in the edges, and then what I'm going to try to do is let it set for about 30 minutes once I pour the black. So the black's going to go in where these little stems are that extend all over the board. It doesn't do so down here. Oh, there is one back here I didn't do. So for the organic effect, it kind of goes off the board a little on certain pieces. Truth be told, I screwed something up over here, and I was using that to fix it. And so that way it didn't look completely out of place. I figured I'd do it in a couple other places, so it looked like it was done on purpose. Happy accidents, trees, right? Once it's cured enough to take the tape off, or dried enough, it isn't fully cured by that point, I'm gonna let it do its thing, and then I'm gonna come back and let it completely cure, and then I'm gonna sand it all back with radius block, make sure it's good to go, and then I'm gonna reinstall the frets, and we should be good. So, almost done with this thing.
So this is the part where it gets fun. This is the epoxy part, and all right, so here's where we're gonna get to it. I'm using these little small containers that we had laying around. It's an A and B, just a part A, part B epoxy, and it came from, you guessed it, Temu. So we have the mica powder. It all came from Temu, and if it don't come from Home Depot, Lowe's, or Harbor Freight, it probably came from Temu or Amazon. So anyway, I thought I was gonna just do black, but then I was like, I got brown, so let's do brown. So put some brown in there, because I figured the brown and the black, even though traditionally you'll see almost like a black light tint on a cherry blossom sakura. And so what's funny about it is, obviously, it's not pitch black. This is more of a mica powder. This mica powder is glittery like. So I was like, okay, well, I'll give it a little bit of texture and add some more value to it, give it some more browns. And I'm using that needle with a plunger. So if you've ever given a kid medication, like an oral medication, you've probably seen these before. But it's nice. It's really good control. That way I don't have to overspill the epoxy. There are a little tiny low spots here and again, but this gave me a lot of control to go back in after it cured a little bit to add some more. But I only added clear later because really I didn't need the color. I mean, I put very little clear just to give it a bit of a meniscus to go over the top of the wood, so when I stand it back, it's flush and radius with the rest of the board. And I like the randomness of the brown and the black in there. You don't know exactly how much you're getting of each one, so that's really cool, I think. I like a bit of chaos when I'm doing stuff like that. Funny, when I draw, usually comics and stuff I usually go with more of a limited color palette, and then just kind of darker shades for shading and lighters of the same shade, basically the same hue as it were, but just more or less saturation. So this is a little bit different than I would maybe do it digitally. And also, if I do it digitally, I'm probably going to blend it out quite a bit, and it would look similar to this if I were doing something like a tree. But characters and things, I tend to use like solid colors, and I use more hatch shading because I like the way inks look with color behind them. So originally I was going to make it look like it was an ink outline with black. That was my original intention, but I realized how much more difficult it was going to be now because this channel is really small, and trying to do it with a pen and filling it with clear, I don't know. I was like, that's just not going to work. So I just decided to do solid color epoxies instead. And I'm glad because it looks really good. It does, oddly enough, it does have from the Dremel tool, it has a little bit of burn on the outside, which gave it kind of an outline contour, which is pretty cool. And now I'm just waiting to see if, I need to add anywhere, make sure I didn't miss anything. Which I ended up having to go back and make a little bit more brown, I think, at one point, and then it's better to overfill it, but I didn't want it to seep into the frets. Like some of it does. I can't really help all of that because some of the channels kind of dug into the fret slots a little, which makes it harder to clean out, but I was able to get it taken care of. If I were to do it again, I would try to find a way to maybe insert like a piece of wood or something like that, like a veneer, and give it like 30 minutes to an hour, and then pull all of those up, because then the epoxy gets tacky and it'll stay in place. Which is what I ended up having to do with one of the flowers, because one of the channels for the flower, and the channel for the branch kind of went into each other. And I was like, well, that's not going to work. So I filled it a little bit with brown, waited for it to cure up a little bit, but then filled it with white, and I made it work. And some people will do it, pour the white and the brown right next to each other at the same time, so that they kind of push against each other. But I ended up doing it a little differently than that because I wasn't sure if that was going to work out or not. Plus, I didn't want to have to do all the white at the same time as all the brown, because I only had a couple mixing bowls, and we don't have any like red solo cups or anything laying around like that. Again, just working with what I have the best that I can. So it doesn't matter. What I ended up doing worked, but the brown branch kind of did bleed a little into where the white was going to go. But it doesn't matter because the white's opaque and it covered it up. But I was able to let that harden a bit and then fill it back in. It kind of masked it off. And then I was able to once that cured up a bit, I was able to put the white in there. I mean, like I said, it worked itself out. There was just enough epoxy that was hardened there to keep the brown from bleeding back into the flower. Yeah, if you're mixing epoxy, by the way, in my opinion, use plastic, because unless the wood is sealed with paint or something, like if you use a wood stirring stick, that's fine. If it's, in my opinion, sealed, because wood is porous, of course, and it's going to introduce bubbles when you're stirring it much more than plastic will. And obviously this is solid color rather than clear, but when I did the clear with a plastic spoon, I had a lot less bubbles, and I didn't have to worry about getting them out. I did take a lighter to it anyway, just to be safe, but I didn't see any bubbles in it, and I also knew I was going to be sanding it back. All that said, I don't see any bubbles in the finished product, and I think it looks good. Trying to be careful here so I don't blend the brown into the white. And when I do the red, I do put little drops of red in the center, which actually mixed a little bit with white, which made it pink. Anyway, it was already pink. I figure whatever, it doesn't matter that much. It's already looking pink. So, which is fine because cherry blossoms are traditionally pink. So when I put the little drops in the center, it didn't quite do what I'd hoped it would do. I was hoping it was gonna stay. I mean, I know that it's a fluid, but it's pretty viscous. If I had let it cure up a little bit before doing this, it might have been better. But I thought while it was a fluid, it might create that flower effect a little better. If I wanted it to be like absolutely controlled, it would have been better to leave it maybe 30 minutes when it starts to get tacky. Put the red in there, then take the toothpick and stretch it out into a star pattern. But I didn't do that. I did this instead, which thankfully it actually worked out. It looks to me, again, it looks more organic, to be honest. I mean, because flowers aren't perfectly looking at you. Like, they're not perfectly facing you. So just leaving it to cure and just trying to clean off what I can so I don't have to sand that much of that back, or, you know, making sure it doesn't bleed into the wood. But thankfully the linseed did a good job.
Okay, so this one here has a little bit of a low spot, and this one a little tiny bit. Most of this is good, most of the branching. This one is pretty pronounced. That one's just very shallow. There's a little here, here, and then some of this and here, some of the branching like right there. Right in this branch, and kind of there. You can kind of see that it's recessed a little, and most of the rest of this is good though. I'm just kind of, there's a little dip here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back over it with clear, all these little tiny dips that I feel. I'm just gonna make sure that it's completely covered so that when I go to sand it, it's gonna be level, and then there won't be any issues when I'm playing.
All right, here we go. This is adding the clear in the low spots, and I reuse these little bottles because it was nice. I didn't need that much of it, so I just didn't know which one was A and B. So I decided it had already been a couple. It had been sitting out. Like, I used as much of it as I could, so there's not really much at the bottom. So if it did cure, say if one was the hardener and the other one was the resin, they probably hardened what was at the bottom, but it didn't do that. It thankfully I guessed correctly, I suppose. Or maybe it did. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It worked out. But they were cheap little plastic tubes, so I figured I'd just reuse them, and if it didn't work out, I'll just toss them. I was able to get the clear mixed up. Like I said, I was using a little plastic spoon. You know, something that you get from like a KFC dinner or something like that. And we're not using them for anything else, so might as well, right? But also make sure you use gloves when you're using this stuff. Same with super glue. It's really tacky. You know, it gets on everything. You don't want to get it on your hands and go touch a door or something and you ain't getting it off. Here, I'm just adding the clear in spots that I think are low, because I'd rather have more to sand back than not enough. And everybody else makes this look really pretty when they're doing it, but this, you know, this is maybe the second time I've used epoxy, so doing what I can. And here's the lighter, like I said, just to make sure there's no bubbles in there. I'm not an epoxy pro. I'm just an artist who likes to mess with stuff. musician and an artist. You know, can't just leave things well enough alone. Yeah, so then it just sets up and cures, and then I come back and sand it back.
The clear on there, you can see it. Hit the clamp. Let's see if you can see the meniscus. Get down here. As you can see, it's there we go. So see, it's raised off the fretboard, so that when I sand it back with 400, it should reveal the inlays that are underneath there and not be so crappy looking as it does now.
Like, subscribe, comment, share. Thank you for watching.